Hey, what is up guys? This is Sleet, and in this video, I'm listing my top 4 favorite beginner-friendly builds that you can obtain fairly consistently and have that overpowered feel that makes this game such a joy to play. Before we start, let me preface by saying that with the right set of boons, hammers, and mirror options, you can make pretty much any weapon aspect feel OP. Also, some builds just jive better with your playstyle more than others. I have a preference for ranged combat with big burst damage, and the builds I discuss in this video generally embody that, but your mileage may vary. I also purposely leave out the hidden aspects because 1, if you're a beginner, you probably do not have access to them yet, and 2, each of them have a bit of a learning curve. I enjoy them a lot, however, and I can walk through them in a separate video. There are also many ways and many boon combinations to talk about in one video, so I'll be focusing on just the key boons you're likely to come across more consistently. As always, if you enjoy this video and find the information helpful, please hit that like button so that others can find this video more easily, and consider subscribing to support this channel. First, let's talk about some generally applicable considerations that will help you on your journey. What you see here is my default mirror setup. As you gain darkness, you're going to unlock these powerful upgrades that empower all of your runs. They are self-explanatory for the most part, but there are a few that may be overlooked or underappreciated. For example, in almost all instances, the extra dash from greater reflex will be the better option, but in limited cases, like with the aspect of Gilgamesh that gives you +2 dashes, or if you are extremely good at evasion, the plus 50% global damage boost from Ruthless Reflex should not be overlooked. Likewise, I almost always take thick skin for the plus 50 health, but when I have high confidence that I'll stay healthy, perhaps with a ranged weapon and low heat, definitely consider the plus 25% global damage boost. Privileged status is one where you might think, 40% damage sounds nice, but I'm not going to pull this off very consistently, so let's go with the other one. But you'll be surprised how often you can, and it's the one that I default to. Family favorite is the more universal choice, and if you acquire boons from a max of I believe 6 different gods, that's 30% damage all the time. You'll want to plan ahead before you start your run, and I'll mention which ones make more sense for each of the builds in this video. Boiling Blood is one that I always have selected but may underutilize during a run. For enemies and bosses with big HP, lodge your red hot shard deep into them for 50% additional bonus damage. Keep in mind, some cast boons do not lodge, like Dionysus and Demeter, so weigh your options heavily when encountering those options. Keepsakes. You can generally force a specific god's boons to appear by equipping that god's keepsake at the start of a biome. If there's a boon that's critical to my build, I'll start off with that god's keepsake, or if I'm missing something critical later, like Athena's dash, then I'll equip it prior to Asphodel or Elysium. If I feel like rolling the dice, I'll go with Sisyphus's keepsake for the plus 80% damage in the first biome, Hypno's coin boost, or one of the stackable keepsakes from Thanatos, Hermes, or Persephone, depending on the circumstances. For the last biome and final boss, I highly recommend Eurydice's Acorn, which blocks 5 instances of damage. In high heat scenarios, this tends to be better than other defensive keepsakes since each of Hades' attacks can easily do 50 plus damage. Lastly, a quick word on hammers and Hermes boons. The game tends to limit you to 2 of each of them, and almost forces you to have 2 of them. So if you have to decide between a hammer and a boon you want, go for the boon you want, as you'll very likely be offered the hammer later on. Most of the time, the Hermes boons you want are going to be obvious, but few may be aware that one of the most OP damage boosts in the game is from Hermes. If you can score both hyper sprint and rush delivery, you can get up to 100% damage multiplier every time you dash, which is insane. At the top of my list is the aspect of Chiron. It takes the pirate out of the heart-seeking bow and makes it into a heat-seeking bow. Get it? No R. Ha ha ha. But really, if you like playing safe and dishing out massive damage, this is the build for you. The playstyle is simple. You mark an enemy with your attack, and then for about 3 seconds, all of your specials will follow that enemy. Make sure you use a dash attack to charge up your attack faster. Well, you do less attack damage, but that is negligible since your special is your main source of damage. An inherent weakness of this weapon aspect is hordes of enemies. If taking enemies out one by one is inefficient, try launching your special without marking enemies. Also, supplement your build with AoE upgrades, for example, Flood Shot for cast or Zeus Call. Never underestimate the damage output from your other sources. Also, make sure to take advantage of privilege status, boiling blood, and backstab bonuses from the mirror. Key to this build are boons that heavily increase the damage output of your special. Artemis's boon is S tier here, because with 20 plus arrows being launched, you're going to be critically striking a lot. At the A tier is Aphrodite's boon, which has the highest special damage multiplier. It's possible for Aphrodite to surpass Artemis if you take advantage of privilege status and Artemis's pressure points boon, which causes all sources of damage to critically strike. B tier boons include Demeter, Poseidon, and Athena. These provide a slightly lower damage bonus, and both Poseidon and Athena need a second boon to cause a status curse and proc privilege status. But each of these provides some interesting benefits, with Demeter inflicting slow, Poseidon knocking back enemies, and Athena deflecting enemy projectiles. For hammers, the obvious choices are those that increase your special damage, which are Relentless Volley, Piercing Volley, and Concentrated Volley. If these special enhancing hammers are not offered, then take an attack enhancing hammer that makes sense for your build. A safe choice might be Flurry Shot, which will allow you to mark enemies faster. Conversely, avoid Explosive Shot, which slows down your attack significantly. Note that if you mark multiple enemies with an attack, your special will seek the first marked enemy and continue on to the next if the first is eliminated within the allotted time. Next on the list is the aspect of chaos for the shield. Generally speaking, the shield is probably the safest weapon to clear a run because you can block perhaps 95% of all the different enemy attacks you encounter. For the chaos aspect, after you bull rush, your next special throws +5 additional shields in a cone in front of you. I'll just quickly note that prior to version 1.0, the extra shields used to go in all directions, and that was very powerful. The change to a cone shape is certainly a nerf, one that I hope the developers will consider reverting. Generally, you hold attack to block with your shield, release immediately after your enemy attacks, and then launch your 6 shields. Throw in some attacks, casts, and calls in between, rinse and repeat. But you'll want to be careful as you won't be able to attack or block with your shield when waiting for your special to return. You're quite vulnerable during these moments, so dash away to a safe place. Also, sometimes it may be more efficient to launch a single shield special rather than the empowered special, for instance when there's just one enemy, or if the enemies are not properly positioned. With the chaos aspect, most of your damage will be from your special, but will need to be supplemented with other sources unlike the aspect of Chiron. So seek strong boons for your attack, cast, and call as well. core to this build is Zeus's lightning on the special. Zeus's lightning is powerful because each of your shields will cause a lightning bolt. You should definitely take advantage of privilege status and boiling blood from the mirror. For that, you'll want to make sure you also get static discharge for the jolted effect, and get an attack boon that also curses enemies like Aphrodite, Demeter, and Ares. I like Aphrodite and Demeter because the status curses last longer and provide defensive perks, but the damage output from Ares is nice, especially if you can get Impending Doom as well. If offered, take Double Strike, Splitting Bolt, and Cold Fusion for some ridiculous damage. Cold Fusion in particular, think about Hades' attack rate. Watch him dig himself into his own grave. But you're not going to get these every run, and without them you'll really need to supplement your damage sources. Cast and Call are vital here. I would highly recommend Zeus's aid since you're already buffing your lightning bolt effects. For hammers, counterintuitively, the special enhancing hammers are not the best here since most of the damage is coming from the lightning bolts, not your special's base damage. Some of the special enhancing hammers are not even compatible with the chaos aspect, like Dread Flight and Charged Flight. The exception might be here the Explosive Return, which deals 50 base damage to nearby foes when you catch it. I may be wrong, but I believe that's for each shield you catch, causing your empowered special to do quite a bit of extra damage. However, positioning may be tricky. Instead, the best hammers are going to be the ones that enhance your bull rush. Charged Shot is a great one, not only for the higher attack damage and piercing ability, but also lets you remain in place. Sudden Rush, Breaching Rush, and Minotaur Rush would also be good here. Now let's talk about Demeter's Fists. But Sleet, this isn't a ranged weapon, why is this here? I'll tell you why. It dishes out big burst damage, yummy yummy yummy, and you can make it ranged with hammers. And fisting is really fun. Does that sound weird? So with Demeter Fists, after you land 12 attacks, you empower your special to hit 5 extra times at max level. You will be dishing out so many unwanted colonoscopies with this build and with no return customers. You can get the most damage output by attacking 4 times, dash striking to get behind the enemy, attack 4 times, and repeat. Once you've built up your meter, take your enemy from behind and release your special for that 50% backstab bonus. You'll also want to take advantage of privilege status and boiling blood here, and weave in casts and calls. Calls are especially helpful here because of being in melee range, so you're already in range to dish out Zeus or Dionysus damage, and the ability to become impervious on the fly with other gods' calls will save your life. So there is a lot of flexibility for this build, but you certainly want to take advantage of that empowered special. The boon list for the special is essentially the same as for the aspect of Chiron that you saw earlier, with Artemis and Aphrodite as the S tier and A tier options respectively. For the attack, you'll want one that causes a status curse. I would recommend one that benefits from rapid attacks like Demeter, Dionysus, and Zeus. Zeus's Chain Lightning is really good for clearing hordes, but you'll need that second boon to apply the jolted status. For the call, you'll want one that allows you to continue attacking. Athena's boon is the S tier here. You'll become impervious for at least 2 seconds, during which you can fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee without a care in the world. Your fist can dish out more damage than any damage causing call boon, but if Athena's call is not an option, I'd rank the following in the A tier. One is Aphrodite for extra survivability, or Dionysus, Zeus, or Demeter for additional damage plus status effects. One more thing I'd highly recommend is Athena's dash here. I almost always get Athena's dash with every build, but doubly so here since you're likely going to be in melee range and it's going to save you in a pinch. And I say likely because you can make these fists range, and that's how I like to play them when offered. The best hammer here, no doubt, is the kinetic launcher, which not only increases the base damage of your special and gives you a power shot bonus, but it's also a freaking Mega Man cannon. If your enemy dies with just one of your projectiles, the rest will continue on to the next enemy in line. You can also make your attacks ranged as well with the long knuckle. These are the two that I always take if offered. Otherwise, I would also take flying cutter and breaching cross for the damage increase, or colossus knuckle for the sturdy bonus. The remaining hammers pretty much sit at the same tier for me. The aspect of Hestia for the Railgun is as close to a sniper rifle as you'll get in this game. I absolutely love taking out enemies in one hit, and this is the weapon to do it with, especially when you can do over 1500 damage with a single bullet. Every time you reload, your next attack will be empowered with plus 50% range and up to a 150 base damage. The empowered sniper shots will be your main source of damage here, and lower heat with fewer shielded enemies, you shouldn't have too much trouble relying on this. You'll just need to figure out if it's more efficient to reload immediately for a second empowered shot or unload the rest of your clip. This is one build where it may make sense to take Fiery Presence for the 100% damage bonus to undamaged foes, but of course you'll lose the backstab bonus. If you stick with Shadowy Presence, you'll want to dash through your enemies and lodge that empowered bullet into their backside. You may also want to forego Privilege status for Family Favorite here too, since that first bullet won't be getting any damage benefit. A word of caution, this build at its base really lacks AoE damage and will struggle in rooms with tons of enemies. It also loses its effectiveness against enemies that have one-shot protection, including shielded enemies and enemies with a damage control bonus. For such scenarios, this build is heavily dependent on boons, which are not hard to get, but do keep this in mind. For this build, let's talk hammers first. There are essentially two ways to play this build based on the hammer offerings. The first is to heavily invest in your empowered attack. For that, the best boons would be Piercing Fire, Explosive Fire, or Ricochet Fire, all of which synergizes with your empowered shot. Each of these make your attack AoE, which will help you clear hordes a lot better. The other way to build is a hybrid approach, by increasing reliance on your special. I make this decision if I'm offered the Rocket Bomb Hammer, which makes your special fly straight in front of you instead of the default lob. It is essentially an AoE empowered shot. If I get this, the Rocket Bomb Hammer, then that opens up other hammers such as Triple Bomb and Cluster Bomb. The hybrid approach is the better one in my book, as you now have two sources of high damage and you are better equipped to handle hordes. For boons, you obviously want to increase your empowered shot as much as possible, and if going the hybrid approach, your special damage as well. For your attack, I actually put Aphrodite above Artemis in this case because number one, you will likely get more damage overall from Aphrodite's higher base damage boost since you won't be critically striking all too often. 2, the weakened status bonus, and 3, if you go the hybrid approach, you'll want to get pressure points anyway to make all of your damage sources crit, so you'll get that crit bonus. Also, instead of Athena's dash, I would also heavily consider getting instead the Artemis's dash, the Artemis's Hunter dash, which can give you up to 100% bonus damage to your empowered shot. That's because unlike every other dash strikes in the game, your empowered shot is not nerfed by dashing. Also good here is Ares' Battle Rage, and empowering your next attack or special by up to 200% after you kill an enemy, so you can easily chain one-shot kills with this. If you also get Hermes Hyper Sprint plus Rush Delivery, that can be another 100% damage boost. If you go the hybrid approach, you'll also want to empower your special, and you pretty much want to do the same thing. Artemis or Aphrodite are both great, but I'd also recommend Poseidon here, as the knockback ability will help maintain distance between you and your enemies. So I have a confession. I actually wanted to make a top 5 build video, and my 5th was going to be the aspect of Poseidon. However, thinking about the build led me down so many rabbit holes with different cast builds that I decided to table that for possibly another video. Let me know in the comments if you'd like that. So that concludes my top 4 beginner friendly builds that will hopefully help you on your next set of runs in Hades. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.